Greetings, one and all, and welcome to volume number 5, episode number 5 of the NFL Talk series, team by team previews. Today on the show, we're wrapping up the NFC East, where we will be previewing the New York Giants. Thanks for listening to today's podcast in advance. Got a couple of updates for you guys, which I will get to straight away. First off, polls. And my latest poll has coincidentally been one of my more popular ones. Actually, I'm not sure why I said coincidentally, because it wasn't that coincidental. Just, it's one of my most popular polls. Will Dez Bryant or Tony Romo get injured this season? There were 4 options. Number 1, Romo will get hurt. Number 2, just Dez will get hurt. Number 3, neither will get hurt. Number 4, both will get hurt. The option receiving the fewest votes currently, Dez will get hurt, with just 6% of the votes. That is currently, with 6%, that's 7 votes. The next option receiving the next amount of votes, 16%, 18 votes. Neither will get hurt. The next vote receiving the next highest, 19%, 21 votes, Romo will get hurt. And the overwhelming favorite here, with 59% of the votes, 66 votes, both Dez Bryant and Tony Romo will get hurt sometime this season. So either there's a lot of Cowboys haters in the NFL Talk community, or just people who are constantly believing the worst for the Cowboys and their key offensive players. You know what? I will give you this, that Romo is incredibly injury-prone, and that sometimes it takes just literally someone to breathe on him for him to fall over and die. But I think Romo is going to have a good year. I'm not guaranteeing that he isn't going to get hurt, and actually I haven't voted on this poll yet, but I think he is going to have a solid year for the Cowboys. Also, if you haven't checked out this week's weekly Twitter poll, or not weekly Twitter poll, my mistake. If you haven't checked out this week's weekly Twitter follow, you're going to want to do that. Still talking about polls. This week's weekly Twitter follow is @OnTheBenchCBS. It's a podcast, or it's a radio show rather, hosted by Scott Farrell. He hosts it on CBS Sports Radio every weeknight at 10 p.m. It's from 10 to 2 Eastern Time, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. He talks all the latest news in sports, and you can check him out on Twitter @OnTheBenchCBS. So you're going to want to go and do that as soon as possible. All right, we're jumping right in and talking about the New York Giants. And tonight, the guy to talk about is the guy that's coming back for the New York Giants. That's Victor Cruz. He practiced fully on Tuesday, and Coach Ben McAdoo said that the goal is for Cruz to play Saturday against the Jets. It's going to be his first game almost back in almost 2 years. The Giants are itching to get him back on the field. He is one of their key offensive players. He's a really incredible talent. Keep in mind, back in 2011, not many people get this. He caught 82 balls for 1,536 yards. 1,536 yards. That's a lot of yards. He had 1,092 yards in 2012, and in 2013, 998 yards. Took a drop off in 2014, obviously, with the injury, but Victor Cruz can, and I believe will, have a solid season. I'm not expecting numbers like 2011, but I think 800 yards is not that far off for Victor Cruz. Maybe even get near 1,000. It's definitely a possibility. As for the quarterback situation, the guy throwing to him, Eli Manning. Eli Manning has 5 career seasons with at least 4,000 passing yards. He's trying to make this his 3rd straight season with at least 4,000 passing yards. Going to be a pretty solid feat. And I think he can do it. I'm not expecting him to necessarily, but I think he can do it. It's a definite possibility for him. You know what? I'm going to say, though, that I don't think he will. I just think the Giants aren't a good enough team this year for him to get to 4,000 yards. I think he'll have a good season, but I think 4,000 yards is stretching it just slightly. Back to the guys he's throwing to, Victor Cruz came back from that injury and found himself the number 3 wide receiver spots because Sterling Shepard is the number 2 guy. He is a second-round man out of Oklahoma. Small guy, 5'10", 194 pounds. And he's the number 2 wide receiver on the Giants. The expectations for this guy, at least in my opinion, are rather high. I'm expecting an 800-yard season from him if he can stay healthy. I think with the return of Victor Cruz and the constant presence of Odell Beckham Jr. barring injury, will let this talented, they're going to allow for this talented young wide receiver to get open, to create separation, and I think he can win one-on-one matches. We've seen in the preseason and in training camp as well. We've seen it happen. And I think it'll play into the regular season for Sterling Shepard. Then as for the guy I did just mention, Odell Beckham Jr. The question for many is, where does he come in their wide receiver ranks for this year? You guys are going to put over him. You got Antonio Brown. You got Julio Jones. And I think that Odell Beckham Jr. comes in at a solid number 3. That's at least where I put him. Beckham, if he continues his streak of increasing his receptions, yards, and touchdowns every year, if he continues the streak that he's on, he'll get to at least 100 catches. He'll get to over 1,500 yards. And he'll catch 14 touchdowns. Now, I think that may be stretching things a bit, given the new offensive weapons that they have in specifically Sterling Shepard. He'll get some looks, and the return of Victor Cruz. I think he'll have a great season. I think he can match last year's pace. Can he get to 100 receptions? I don't know. He makes a couple of crazy, supposedly uncatchable ones like last year. Or I should say the year before last year. It's a definite possibility. I love Odell Beckham Jr. this year. I just drafted him in my fantasy league, which was a few days ago. It was held Sunday night, the one I'm a commissioner in. He was my first overall selection, although it was an auction draft, so can't really say selection as well. I think I got him for $57, which I like the value that he's going to bring to my team. Look, many claim that Odell Beckham Jr. is only famous because of that one catch, but that's not the truth at all. Odell Beckham Jr. is a phenomenal talent. He's big, 200 pounds, 5'11". Doesn't sound like a huge guy, but he's big. He's got an attitude. He plays with confidence. And he does have talent. He's got strength. And even in double coverage, he can create separation. All the Odell Beckham Jr. haters out there, I should say. I almost said fans. All the Odell Beckham Jr. haters need to chill. Alright? I understand if you hate him for his attitude. That is definitely plausible for me. I understand that. Because I think he's got a little bit too much of an attitude. But to hate him for his play, and to think and suppose and presuppose that he's only famous because of that one catch, wrong. It's flat out wrong. Because Odell Beckham Jr. would be famous. Maybe not quite as famous, but he'd be still an incredibly well-known wide receiver even without the catch, too, as some are dubbing it. As for the running back situation, I also drafted Rashad Jennings in my league. Rashad Jennings, according to the New York Daily News, is going to be the clear back this year. And that, quote, the team is scrapping its four-man committee, unquote. Is what I say to that. because fantasy owners love this. And Rashad Jennings is an underrated player this year because he's reportedly going to see 15 or more carries a game. He's going to be the workhorse. He's in the prime of his career, and he seems to be a clear lead back. I like Jennings this season. I think he'll have a solid season. I think there's a chance he gets to 1,000 yards, barring any injuries. The running back committee that the Giants had been using included Andre Williams, Shane Vereen, and then Orleans Darkwa, which they no longer have on the team as far as I know. Great for fantasy owners. No more back by committee, and I think that Rashad Jennings is an underrated guy that you're going to want to look at. I think he will have a great season. Although he is not my X factor this year, or I should say for this team, for the Giants, and as we move towards giving out the X factor, I'm going to hand the X Factor award not to a single player, but for the third time, I'm handing it to the defense. I say third. I gave the Steelers X Factor award to the secondary. I just gave the Eagles X Factor to their defense. And I return to the NFC East to give the Giants defense the X Factor. Because I think we expect certain things from Eli Manning. At least average as a floor. And, at best, top 5 quarterback. Odell Beckham Jr., we expect him to be a top 5 wide receiver. The Giants, I think that Rashad Jennings will be an average back. For where he's going this season in fantasy, he is being drafted dirt cheap, and he's a solid running back too. But he's not the X factor either. I think that the defense is the question mark here. There's some new faces, not least of which is Eli Apple, the cornerback, first rounder. I'm excited to see what the defense can offer. Also nervous, because they can make or break the Giants team. I'll tell you what, if the Giants defense face plants this season and Manning has to throw it a ton of game, I think that he will eclipse 4,000 yards. But that's contingent. It hinges upon the Giants' defense face planting, which we will see whether or not that happens. I'm not expecting that to happen, but I think there's also that chance. As for the record prediction, and as I have told you guys, I do these on the fly, so I'm looking over this now. Some key matchups here. They got the Bengals, the Steelers. They have the Packers, the Vikings. There's some matchups I don't like this year for the Giants. And me personally, checking what their record last year was. Okay, their record last year was 6-10. I think literally they're only going to improve by one game. 7-9 is my record prediction for them. Too many question marks on the defensive side. And despite the fact that the NFC East is the NFC least, the worst team or the worst division in football, I still expect there to be some stiff competition. However, the Giants aren't going to be in there. They're going to be 7-9. They'll be hanging on there towards the end. People think that maybe the Giants can make a break for it, but they go 7-9, miss the playoffs. That's my record prediction for the Giants. All right, thanks for listening today, everyone. We will see you tomorrow as we kick things off in the NFC North. Peace out, everybody.